100 towns and villages that are affected as a result. We have always made it absolutely clear that when you actually apply international humanitarian law to this type of situations, it can only be done if you have military necessity and the security of people in mind. At the moment, with these blanket, massive displacement orders, we are talking here about hundreds and thousands of people. Our colleagues on the ground hear every day about the anguish that people face, about not knowing where to go, not knowing how long it will take. Obviously, this raises serious concern under international humanitarian law, and in particular when it comes to issues around forced transfer. The question around the killing of the Supreme Leader, I mean, obviously, from a human rights perspective, we are against any sort of killings. You know very well our very clear legal stance on the death penalty, for example, or on extrajudicial killings. So we are not going into the details of what international law would say, but from a human rights perspective, any killing of anyone is not in the interest of international human rights law, and we need to be very clear about that as well. On Minab, in this absolutely tragic incident, I think we have all seen some of the images. There are indeed significant concerns about the respect for international humanitarian law, especially conduct of hostilities, because that would require everyone, when the conduct of hostilities happens, that particular measures of precaution, of distinction, or proportionality are taken. When it comes to a school, obviously this is clearly a civilian institution that should never be attacked. I mean, we have a whole huge emphasis on making schools safe, including during war. It requires, then there are questions around the type of weapon that was used, or weapons that were used, as well as the timing. It happened in the morning, and in all of these factors need to be taken into account. What we have asked for is obviously prompt, transparent, and impartial investigations, which we understand has been announced by the United States of America. We need this to happen very quickly, and we need to also make sure that there is accountability as well as redress for the victims. And we don't have more details because we are not present on the ground. It doesn't help that there is an internet shutdown. And obviously, we hope that we would get more details, and the onus is now really on those who had conducted these strikes to conduct this type of investigation. On the human rights situation internally, yes, we have also heard these reports about the tightening of the security. We're very worried about it. We saw what happened in January. The human rights situation has certainly not become any better. We're very worried also about possible executions that could take place, political prisoners, but generally the extreme restrictions that are imposed on the population under the circumstances. So we obviously want to keep watching this very carefully. There are issues around the internet shutdowns, and yes, and we have called on the Iranian authorities to actually open up internet access, because it's also for the safety of their own population. On the use of artificial intelligence, obviously we don't know exactly the details of what type of systems are being used, but it is very clear from an international human rights perspective that you need to have human control over the exercise of weapons. And if that is not the case, we are obviously very worried. And you have heard us constantly make the case that autonomous lethal weapons, we don't know whether they were used, but autonomous lethal weapons are not at all in line with international human rights law, and because they take human agency away, and you need human control over whatever system you use. And yes, we are obviously very concerned about the use of AI in weapon systems.
We have time for 3 more questions. Okay. Regarding the strike on the school, the U.S. is investigating. According to Reuters, it's likely that the U.S. forces were responsible. What exactly should be the next steps regarding the investigations? And how do you personally feel as the UN human rights chief, without the engagement of the US and Israel here during the Human Rights Council? What message would you like to send specifically to these two countries, the two leaderships? Thanks a lot. Sorry. Let's start with me.
Okay. Yeah, over here. Thanks. Good morning. Far from de-escalating, the Trump administration seems to be poised to escalate the level of hostilities. We're talking about a surge of military action in the next few days. Have you or any of your associates at the leadership of the UN had any direct contact with the Trump administration that you feel has had any traction or helped to influence the conduct of hostilities? And if not, who do you think could have that influence? Thank you.
Last question. From your point of view, would this war have been preventable?
Look, when it comes to whatever outcome there will be of the investigations, we hope that they will be prompt and that they will be done in full transparency. We also expect accountability to be served, because obviously mistakes were clearly made and accountability is absolutely critical, but also redress and compensation, as well as clear guarantees of non-recurrence. I mean, it is a lesson to be learned, a horrible, tragic lesson to be learned when girls are killed in this way, and I hope that there will be not only guarantees of non-recurrence, but a review of all the standard operating procedures when it comes to this type of issues, and especially when it comes to conduct of hostilities. What are the messages? I mean, the messages are de-escalate, go back to the negotiating table, and find a way not to use methods of war and military type actions as your means of achieving something. It's never going to work. We have seen it. I mean, we have plethora of examples where this has actually ignited even further, not only powder kegs, but actually caused wildfires. And what we see in front of us today is precisely that. And it's uncontrollable. It's chaos. It's disarray. It's disorder, and the world absolutely cannot afford this. We need precisely the opposite. We need to give diplomacy a chance. We need to give negotiations a chance, and we need to give peace a chance. And we cannot just, and that's why I'm worried also about the very bellicose rhetoric that we see. I hope to go to Washington, D.C. later this month, and we will see what this will bring. We have obviously been in touch, but to be honest, I don't think it's in any way meaningful in terms of influencing the current trajectory. So we need to make sure that it is others who have influence, who exercise this influence, and make whoever continues this war very much aware that this has massive implications, not just for people around the world, millions of people, but also look at food security, for example, what's happening. And that's also to the Iranian authorities, it's to everyone. We need to find ways to de-escalate and to find a way out that brings people back to the negotiating table. Was it preventable? Of course, we always think that everything is preventable when it comes to this type of things. I remember when I gave my global update on Friday morning, to the Human Rights Council, I actually warned about precisely what this could unleash. And unfortunately, it has happened. And it's extremely tragic. It's tragic, first and foremost, for the people in the region, in Iran, in all the countries that are affected, for the civilians. And we also need to make absolutely sure when we hear about the war language that it is ordinary people that every day are suffering the consequences, and it has repercussions that go well beyond the immediate region, and we should never lose sight of that. Thank you very much.